Okay guys, when it comes to putting the piano together, you need to think like this, okay? The piano is a repeat of one pattern, all right? That's an octave. Now generally they talk about an octave being C to C or a 13 key octave, which means they're using the same keys over and over. C, you know, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B and C, right? That's the 13 of them, or if you're just going the white keys, that's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? Right? That's fine, okay, but when I break it down for you, I actually talk about a 16 key octave, which incorporates the A to C, right? So A sharp, B, C, and then that same process again. So I'm adding 3 keys, it's not 13 now, it's 16. And I explain why that's important in module 4, where we go introduction to piano, but then introduction to thinking for yourself and piano. What I'm just going to leave you with here is once you learn basic chords, whether it's a C major, C minor, or you know, C sharp minor or C sharp major, whatever chord structure you're learning, once you know that pattern, it's just a case of moving it up and down, you know, and finding out where else you go. If you're just going to use the, you know, 5-3-1, if you're in the left hand on the C, like you don't necessarily move that up just tones, but you can. Okay, it's not always going to work exactly for the song, but essentially it's very, very simple once you know just those patterns to then put it into a song. Okay, if you move it on up an octave, so yep. Right? Right, which is pretty much the exact same pattern. And then there's inversions, which means you're doing that one pattern, but then you're just moving things down an octave. Whether it's G, move it down, right? Right? Then you move E, down an octave. Right, it just gets simpler and simpler. And these are the things we'll cover. But the point I'm trying to show you here is that when you play the piano and you learn these patterns, right, you will put them into your hands. It becomes an extension of you. You don't have to think and look after you've got it down. It's like driving a car using the gear stick. You don't look every single time when you're going to turn the gear stick. You know, it's like writing an A, N, D. Your hands just know how that's going to go. Like, this is the point of what this discussion is just getting into your head that you're not going to be doing this like all the time, okay? Like, you're going to be able to, all right, you're going to be able to do stuff like that real quick. Once we just get a couple of these things get in the flow, you only have to practice it, you know, 30 to 90 times, and then your hands should take over. Over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through the theory behind the Mackay method.
As I mentioned earlier, the theory was established on 88 keys, but don't worry if your keyboard is smaller, the method will still work. For those of you with full-size keyboards, feel free to repeat the following steps or just watch and listen.
Throughout this DVD, I will use color coding and animation to point out significant keys or groups of keys.
The first step I took was to break the keyboard down into quarters as shown. I did this purely as part of an experiment in division. The next thing I did was locate the quarter interval keys. This is done by counting from left to right in groups of 22 keys as shown here. Once I had isolated the keys 22, 44, 66, and 88, I started to look for some kind of connection or relationship between them. I decided to take these keys and group them together within a single octave. In this example, we have used the top octave. The top octave is located on the right-hand side of the piano. It's the last 13 keys. The process of finding the quarter interval keys and placing them in the top octave is achieved through counting groups of keys in a particular order, which I will demonstrate. It is important to remember that as you use the Mackay method when counting, your starting point is always considered number 1. Locate the first quarter interval or 20-second key on the piano. You'll discover that this is a black key. In order to find the related key in the top octave, count up 5 black keys with the 20-second key counted as number 1. When you reach number 5, jump to the next black key. This will be the same key you started on but in the next octave. Repeat this process until you find the matching key in the top octave. Remember its position. Now locate the second quarter interval or 44th key on the piano. You'll see that this key is white. The white keys are counted in groups of 8 as there are 8 white keys to an octave. With the 44th key counted as number 1, count left to right 8 white keys. As before, you'll notice you've landed on the same key in the next octave. This key now becomes number 1 in the counting process as you count the next 8 keys. Continue this process until you find the same key in the top octave. The counting process is the same for quarter interval 3 or key 66. Now that you have found all 3 quarter interval notes in the top octave, I will demonstrate how to find the 4th quarter interval note. As the 88th key is the last on the keyboard and is already in the top octave, to find its related key in this instance, we must count backwards. As with the other white keys, count one group of 8, but this time from right to left. Be sure to include key 88 as number 1 in the count. The key you land on is the 4th quarter interval in the top octave. So now that we have found all the quarter interval keys in the top octave, I can demonstrate their significance. These 4 keys have not one but 2 attributes that change the way I looked at the piano. Traditionally, when anyone sits at the piano, they consider the piano to start at the left. I always considered the left to be the bottom for 2 reasons. 1, the sound was low, and 2, I, like most people in Western society, was taught to read from left to right. It only makes sense the piano should work that way. The quarter interval keys reveal a direct contradiction to that way of thinking, one that allows anyone far greater ease of understanding and comprehension of the piano as a whole. If we examine the 4 quarter interval keys in the top octave and give them the number values of the actual interval keys, this is what we see. The 22nd key relates directly to the 7th key in the top octave. The 44th key relates to the 5th key in the top octave. The 66th key relates to the 3rd key. And the 88th key relates to the 1st key in the top octave. As you can see, the 4 quarters of the piano have been reversed through their related keys in the top octave. In order of occurrence, 88 is first, 66 is second, 44 is third, and 22 is last.
The Mackay method suggests that this fact indicates the true flow of a piano, or any keyboard for that matter, is from right to left. The other discovery that I made while examining the quarter interval keys in the top octave is that they landed on numbers 1, 3, 5, 7 within any octave. If you count up these numbers, they give us a grand total of 16, another number divisible by 8. And I was pretty sure that that was no coincidence. This is how the Mackay method began to take shape. Once again, the numbers were relating to 8. The next step I took was to look at the piano in the new direction that I had discovered. I began counting keys and octaves from right to left. Right from the beginning, this made sense, because the first key on the keyboard was now a C.
And traditionally, octaves are started at the C note. As I counted down through the keys, I found I had 3 keys remaining after the last octave. I had to explore the possibility that these additional keys had relevance. To me, the obvious thing to do was to include these keys in the last octave. In doing so, I realized that the number of keys in my octave now equaled 16.
There's that number again. This is where I developed the theory that the 16 keys held a code that directly related to the 88 keys on a piano. That code is simple: 8 plus 8.
The new octave that I have named the Mackay octave will hold 2 related chords joined by a single root note across its span. It also allows the leverage to create simple or complex songs within a single octave. It's for this reason that I've named the 3 spare keys at the end of the piano leverage keys. These leverage keys can be applied to any octave on the keyboard.
The 16-key or Mackay octave offers boundaries between which you can develop each skill base before moving on to outer areas. And that is one of the reasons it is so easy to learn using the Mackay method.
To recap, so far I've demonstrated that by finding out quarter interval keys and their relatives within a single octave, we can say the flow of a piano can be reversed. In addition to this, we have also discovered when following the flow from right to left, we are left with a 3-key leverage in every octave, giving us the flexibility of a 16-key octave as opposed to the traditional 13-key octave.
The key point is to remember everything on the piano relates to the number 8. These are the key principles around which the Mackay method was developed. Understanding these basic foundations of my method is not essential for the primary teachings to follow. However, I do feel it is important for you to understand that this unique method was realized through a desire to make learning easier. The Mackay method does complement traditional learning in many ways, or it can be the basis for your entire learning experience. You decide. Now that you have the knowledge you need to find major and minor chords, and you have a basic understanding of how to create a chord progression, it's time to put that knowledge to work.
Building a song requires a sense of rhythm and timing. The Mackay method encourages you to find your own sense of rhythm and timing. It's about, dare I say it, empowering you to experiment.
The following exercise is designed to demonstrate an example of varied timing. You should practice this exercise until you can play it confidently. In further volumes of the Mackay method, we will start to integrate the left hand and we will learn how to play melodies. For now, I want to concentrate on your right hand and timings within a chord progression.
First, locate a C major chord as shown here. Ensure your hand is in a comfortable position. Play each of the white keys in a progression forward and then back like so. Next, locate a G major chord, which is the next chord in the progression. Repeat the same action as before. Next, locate the D major chord, which is next in the progression and should be played as the other chords were, although this time the black key is included as shown. A major is the final chord in the progression, and the same applies to it. The chord progression we are playing is C, G, D, and A.
Keep working at the exercise until you are happy.
The next step is to vary the timing of the notes played. This time when you play the progression, play all the chords as before, but only play every second note on the way back like this. Link the chords together and you begin to hear some basic elements of a song.
This is a hand exercise which will prepare you for learning melodies in the next volume. Now, we will play the chord progression in its basic form, with a simple variation on the timing.
These are the chords to be played: C, G, D, and A. Play these chords as follows. As you become more confident, try picking up the pace a little, like so.
From this point forward, you can start experimenting in many ways. You could introduce your left hand to play matching notes on the low end of the keyboard, as demonstrated here. You can also feel free to change the chords as you see fit. There's no rule against it, and you will know whether or not you made a mistake. You could try something like this. As you can see, there is much room for experimentation, and I strongly encourage that you do so. In Volume 2, we will focus on the introduction of the left hand, further developing our chord progressions, and playing basic melodies. Until then.